Yeah, now it's set on my screen. All right, we are back for the next episode of Destination Success Podcast. This is Mike Wilmer, and I'm here with my co-host Sherm. Sherm, how are you?
What's up, brother? How you doing, man?
It's good. It's been a minute. We have both been out there doing our thing. We'll come back to do another episode of the podcast. So today we're going to talk about failure. It's one of our favorite topics, and Entrepreneur Magazine does a really good job of summarizing some stuff. Sometimes we agree, sometimes we don't, but we like to go through our lists. And the one that they put out recently is 18 ways to bounce back from failure. And the first couple are interesting. The first is wallow, right? But the second one follows up very quickly. But don't wallow, don't wallow too long, right? And I think their whole point there is, express yourself, understand and identify the problem, but don't stay there too long. So what do you think?
I agree, brother, because we just did it ourselves. Or let's just say I did it myself.
Take two
On the 24-minute bang-ass podcast that did not get recorded. So,
that's right. That's
so right. we didn't wallow along. We hit the record button and we're going to knock it out.
But that was a dry run. We're good.
We were just coming back for, we had So the purpose is just like that, like you pivot with it, you knock it out. I don't like the word wallow, but the definition is what it is. Like you gotta feel into it and then get out of it, and be done with it. It's a quick thing. As an entrepreneur, you're going to make 1,000 mistakes, and you can't feel sorry for yourself because you do it. Understand it's part of the process. Understand that the sooner you make mistakes, the better you're going to be. And that's really what it's about. It's that each mistake gets you to where you want to be faster. And you just got to do it. And that's it. I mean, that's what it's really all about.
Yeah. And, number 4 on their list is forgive yourself. And I think that's where you got to give yourself some grace. You know what I mean? You got to, and life is all about the pivot, right? Your life is going to knock you down all the time. We talked about that, in the last conversation is we got to sit there. You got to pivot, but you got to forgive yourself, because if you're the anchor balled up in the corner, like we talked about, your staff or your partner or whoever is going to watch that, right? And they're going to take your lead, positive or negative.
Look, it wasn't your fault. You created a plan. Let's be real. None of this shit's personal. This is you suck. What happened is you created a plan, and you have a world and a universe of factors that you can't control. You can only create a plan and move forward. You created a plan and it didn't work as designed. Great, no problem. Great. I'm glad we figured it out now before we spent millions of dollars investing in this, that this thing doesn't really work the way we thought it was going to work. Now You say, okay, pivot, adjust, tweak, turn 1 degree, whatever it is, and let's move on and go to the next part of it. And that's what you got to do. You can't be hard on yourself, because you're not going to last long, because especially in the beginning, the mistakes come fast, because you're learning all of this on the fly. You don't have a playbook. There's nobody handed you, even if they do hand you a legacy business, that was how they did it. You're not them.
No, the market's not the way it was when they had it eventually.
Exactly.
And then you have, and then everybody's price sensitive, and everybody thinks entrepreneurs are out here riding around in jets and Hummers,
We're not. I don't understand.
Right. Yeah, right. They don't realize the expense associated with running a business overall sometimes. So it's hard to, it's hard. And that brings us really to number 7. We joke, you can joke about meditation all you want, but the reality is what is your self-care, right? We talked about that in previous things and discussions, right? That could be golf, that could be going to the park with your kids, whatever you consider self-care, whether it's meditation, you got to take care of yourself, particularly in when failure is present in your life.
Well, sure. And failure is always present. Like, nothing goes well. I mean, your kids don't do well at school, and then they do well at school, and then they have a problem with one of their, there's always I'm going to tell you what has propelled me as a person is this journey, because I had to learn so much so fast that I probably, if I had a regular job like my father and worked at a place like Delmarva Power for as long as he did, I probably would have never figured me out, because I would have just done the same shit every day, day in and day out, and blamed everybody else like they do. So the thing is, in order to do that, you go and find something that makes you happy. Like I like cigars and boats, and I now play golf, and and I always loved eating at restaurants. So there are the things that I go out and do to kind of reset my mindset and get away from what was going on in the daily business. Now, does it ever stop? No, I'm always thinking about it. But if you can take yourself to a happy place, like they mentioned in 5, find what makes you happy, and it leads right into meditate. Is that when you like, you might like, knitting or crocheting or drinking wine or playing tennis or whatever it is, but that puts you in a place so you get your happy endorphins going.
Right.
That way you're counteracting the negative endorphins, and that way you're getting back into, what? All right, I got this now. You know what I mean? Okay, cool. Yeah, that didn't work out the way we were going to work it. We thought we were going to do it, but you know what? Let's try this, because I've been thinking about this, and that's how you get to the next. You keep moving forward in the
mindset. Mindset and everything is everything. I mean, we see this a lot in coach. Failure comes up a lot in coaching, or potential to fail comes up, and we always have the same conversation. Either the next 6 months are going to pass whether you like it or not, right? So you can be positive, or you can be balled up in the corner. What do you think is going to be most serving to you, right? And it's
right.
It's about the mindset and how you do it.
Yeah, no, I mean, what your biggest challenge is what lies between your 2 ears. Right. It's not anyone else. It's not everyone else. It's not your customers, your employees. It's what you're thinking, in your head. That's your biggest challenge all day, every day.
Right. So number 8, I like, it's help someone, right? And I talked before about I do complimentary coaching sessions all the time, because I get so much out of complimentary coaching sessions. I learn things myself. I'm helping somebody's helping me as much as I'm helping them in those conversations. And I try to get into as many things I don't know about, so I can learn and have practical experiences. So I can kind of play that forward. And I think helping someone also is something, especially when you're having some failure, just that leadership piece of helping somebody else sometimes helps you as well.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm always coaching my staff and helping them, and you got to get back to the giver's game. The more you do, the more comes to you, and it's not a selfish thing, but just understand it's what you put out in the universe comes back to you. So if you're helping other people, get better at whatever it is, then you're going to get better too. And remember that all boats rise, all tides rise boats. Like it's that age-old saying that helping other people is going to help yourself, and you do learn. I coach my managers all day, every day, and we have all these things. And my biggest thing now is scheduling. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm horrible at it. You know what I mean? Like, I've always just done what it was supposed to be done, but doing it, and we're all being accountable for it. There's a text message every day to go over what they're doing and how they're doing it. And that's, you got to help other people, because you're going to learn, like I don't know everything, and listening to me tell them how to do it or how they should be doing it. Then in turn, I hear something differently, even out of my own lips, that I know what I'm supposed to be doing. But, hey, I should try this way, because that's what I just said to them, kind of thing. So
yeah. And I think a big one, they're number 9, look for opportunities. And I think to me, some of the best pivot opportunities and success comes out of some failures, right? Because it really slows you down and says, I got to think about this in a different way. And then that's really when the ideas start coming in, right? When you slow down, and a lot of times you'll see the success come out of that. I mean, that to me is one of the biggest pieces of looking for opportunities when you're in that failure hits you.
Sure. And I mean, just think about it when you're watching TV, all the sports. Who is the strongest winners 9 times out of 10? Somebody that lost last year, somebody lost the week before, because they're putting more energy and effort and more skill set in it. If you're right, I mean, the biggest buyer beware is, if you're on top forever, guess what? You're getting ready to fall, because if you've been on top forever, you're probably not doing everything you need to do to stay on top.
Even on sport, when I used to coach on the sports side and travel soccer, for example, I used to always want my teams in the toughest divisions, and I wanted to see them lose, right? Because when the parents would always want to see the wins, right? But you really want you want the competitiveness of, you want to understand losing. You don't want to have that, win, 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 easy, 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 easy with no failure. So there's no true growth in that. It's because
Right. Yeah.
you are going to have a giant setback at some point that you might not be able to recover from.
Right. Well, it's not necessarily to have losses, but also you want the extreme challenge,
Right.
of getting the win. It's not just the win;
Yeah.
it's the challenge that comes with it. All the process. Because they tell you as an entrepreneur you should love the process, and I'm going to tell you that's the hardest part, man. Because every day, some days I'm like, shit, do I really have to
Why am
like
I
this?
doing this?
Do I really have to like this? You know what I mean?
Right.
But after you struggle through it and you figure it out and you do it, you're like, wow, that was a pretty cool win, and it just, yeah, you got to,
Yeah.
and that leads into the next one. Forget about winning. I love that, of course it's shock chalk, it's the shock of the titles, but it's not forget about winning. What it is that, once you're in there, it's not focusing necessarily on winning and losing.
Right.
It's just understanding that there's a process to play, and you have to get it back on the horse, and you got to get back on the ride and understand that there's a bigger goal than the small loss that you just took.
Yeah, and winning means different things to everybody, right?
Sure.
You got to figure out what winning means to you in the first place, right? Is it security? Is it ultimate success? What is that? What is that definition for you? Because your definition, my definition of success, and 10 other people we talk to might be completely different.
Well, they're going to be completely different because everybody, everybody in their mind. Yeah, it absolutely should be. I'm not saying we should be the same. That was the whole purpose. We want to be the same. We get in a cubicle. You know what I mean? So,
right.
You just, again, it's not always about winning and losing. Understand that it's a part of the process that you keep defining and sharpening the pencil. As you're using the pencil, it gets dull. You got to keep sharpening it up, or the knife or whatever instrument you want to use in this scenario. But the point of it is that it's not about always winning. It's about learning how to overcome, learning how to, go all in and get to the finish line of where you wanted to be this moment.
Yeah. No, I like number 11. Think big, because I think it's great to have gigantic goals, right? I love Google's concept on this is, fail at 40% of your goals, because that means that 60% you had huge ideas. And we've talked about this in the past is, but you got to be careful with growth, right? We're talking about buying a couple of coaching companies right now from people that are retiring, and it scares the shit out of us, to be honest with you, right? Because are we going to grow too fast? Do we have everything placed to make sure that we're, do that? And we're ultimately, I'm sure when we decide to do it, we're going to fail a little bit, right? Or we might just fail a lot of it, right? And we got to recover.
But if you don't do it, you're not going to fail at all.
Or you did fail already, right? Because you didn't take the chance, right?
And
that's yeah. And you were telling me a story about, I think, a big order you had from the city of Wilmington or something, right? You had very similar.
Yeah. And the same thing. Like it's not always not about thinking big, but you also have to think realistic. So, probably 4 or 5 years ago, so somebody brought an RFP to my attention about the city of Wilmington had 2,000 lunches a day for the summer. And, 4 years ago, I would have said, we're going to do it. I don't care. We'll figure it out. But knowing who we are, and knowing what we can do, I didn't want to risk what we have to take. It wasn't about not thinking big enough. It was about understanding and realizing that was just something we couldn't handle. You know what I mean? Like, I just didn't have the logistics to take care of it. If we were close, if I was, 90%, even if I was 75%, I would have been like, all right, we can figure, we'll take care of this.
Right.
There's only a little bit that we have to figure out. But at this point, we were probably 50%, able to do this. And I was like, I'm not going to be able to figure out 50% or get 50% in 4 weeks in order to take care of this. So, it's not about the big goal. We still have big goals, but you also have to realize not to jump at every little thing just because it's there. It has to make sense and it has to be fit in your core, group of what you're doing.
Yeah. So, and it's just number 13. I like this one. This says remind yourself this will pass when it comes to failure, and I think that is important because listen, you are an entrepreneur for a reason, right? Because you are a generally driven person. If you at least the typical person is if it will pass if you help it pass, right? If you sit there and do nothing, it'll pass eventually, right? Because you're going to totally fail. But if you really wanted to pass and recover, you got to help it along, and you got to know it's a short term issue, and your mindset is going to make it longer than it needs to be if you have a poor mindset.
Again, I love to say this, and you got to go, you got to fail fast and move on. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
it's all actually, honestly, at the point you're thinking about will this pass, it's already passed.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like
right,
it
right,
literally, it's already passed. Now
right,
all you're doing is going to let it sit there and take up real estate in
right.
your head for how long? For free. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah,
over. That whatever happened. I don't care if it was a 1-star review. I don't care if the customer asked for a refund. I don't care. Whatever it is that didn't happen right. You deal with it, you plan it, and then you go back and say, okay, how can we correct this situation?
yeah.
You know what I mean?
I
Like,
used to, yeah, I used to have a mentor that used to tell me, whether it's success or failure, you're either an anchor or you're an oar, right? Which one do you want
sure.
to be? And
Yep.
that I've always remembered that quote over the last 25 years, and it is true. It is true. You're either the anchor or you're the oar, and
Yeah.
you got to figure that out in the moment, in seconds sometimes to move on.
Yeah, I mean, I always tell people you're pulling the brick, cut it away, cut
Right.
the string that you're pulling the brick, because it's just keeping you back from actually being successful. And that's
Right.
really what this means is let it go so that you continue to
Yep.
be successful. Like don't let it take free real estate in your mind forever. Like just
Yep.
yeah.
So there's number 15. I know you have something to say about this one. Forget perfect, be consistent. I'm going to take the consistent part. You take the perfect part. So the consistent part is, I agree 100%. To be successful and particularly get through some adverse times, you got to be consistent. You have it. If you have a problem, you got to recognize it, and you got to have a plan and be consistent to get out of it. And more importantly, to keep you out of failure, keep that consistency. But talk to us about being perfect.
So they go hand in hand because being consistent's awesome, but if you're consistently still doing the same shit, that's not good. So, and it's we're talking about failure in this instance is that it's great to be consistent, but now you have to adapt and realize that you change, and then as you do that, understand that there's nothing perfect. There's not a perfect thing you're going to do. What it is you plan for an achieved outcome, and if it happens, then you're doing it right. If it doesn't happen, then you adjust to get that. Sometimes, the biggest thing is that, as has been said a couple of times, is what didn't work for you worked for you. And you have to understand that maybe what you were planning for your outcome really wasn't what was good for you, and you have to understand that that's part of the non-perfect process.
So, and this is 17 is a really great one, is don't be afraid to try again. And I'm coaching somebody right now that, 5, 6 years ago had a really horrible experience in a business relationship, and it was just toxic and didn't work out well. And now the same person has an opportunity to do something again, and they're leveraging back to that past, and says it's a fantastic opportunity they have now, but they're so stuck in the past that horrible experience. Sometimes failure doesn't mean just doing the same thing. You just do it differently, right? What did you learn from
Sure.
that experience? And
Send them my way.
right,
There's no way that they have more negative, toxic, bullshit relationships that I've had with partners, with
right.
vendors, with all kinds of things. I could whatever they got, I can 10 times it up. Like you just move on. Like you
Right.
always look to plan not to have it happen again.
Yeah,
So
learn from the past.
you learned in this in your client. Your client learned in the last relationship that this and this didn't work because of this and this. You write all that down and you go,
Right.
and now you put it in part of your exit strategy. So any partner or any plan that I did with someone else is that we have a divorce decree prior to
That's
getting
right.
into business,
Always
because
have a prenup.
right, you have it there saying, okay, if it doesn't work, here's our exit strategy, because I don't want to part being mean and nasty. But if
Right.
and it may or may not work, because you never know. But the point is, you have to have that plan and instruction. Understand, like, I got into business with someone that I put down the most incredibly. I asked for the biggest asks and got a yes for every single one. At that point, I know, okay, I'm the sucker. Like, and I only knew that because I have been I've been in a room where I didn't understand that I was the sucker. Now I sat there and I go, okay, I'm the sucker. So we're going to make sure that we put everything in place, that I'm not going to be a huge loser in this situation, but I'm going to take it, because if it happens to be the 100% win, then it's going to be the 100% win. But if I'm asking for all this and their every word is yes, then there's got to be something that I'm missing.
Got to be a catch, right?
There's got to be a catch to it, and that's okay. But you understand going in that, hey, here's the things. Make sure we're checking all this. We're doing all this. We have all the fail safes in place, that just in case. You know what I mean? Yeah. But you just
it never amazes me too when I'm doing a coaching relationship and I say, do you have an operating agreement with your partner? And they're like, no. And I'm like, what? Like, how do you not? Like, what, to your point, what happens if you have to have a divorce, right? Like, you can't, and I always laugh when people are like, I'll never change. I know this person, they're really cool. And like, let me tell you, money changes.
Yeah, I tell you, money changes everything. Everything. And especially when money is bigger than they thought it was going to be. Then it's even worse.
That's right. Right. It's all theory.
It's cool. It's cool when we're making 50 grand, but if you all of a sudden make 200 grand, then shit changes big time. Oh, well, we can do this. We can do that.
Discussion. That's right.
Yeah.
So, and then ending on the last one for entrepreneur.com is remind yourself of the triumphs. And I think that's whether you're talking about failure or success, you said this earlier, I think, was you gotta remind yourself why you're doing this, right? Because it's tough. So
it is. It's grueling. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. Absolute hardest thing I've ever done. But it's also with that has been the most amazing, the best thing, the most rewarding thing that I've ever done at the same time. So you're gonna have, like they say, you work hard, play hard. It's the same thing. Remind yourself of the triumphs. Here's the thing. You have wins every day. If you choose not to find them, then that's your fault.
Right.
You have wins every day. Every win doesn't have to be a huge monstrosity, fireworks going off and the glare and sparkle banner and all that. You have wins every day. Focus on the wins. Focus on what you have, being grateful every day. Write them down. I have a little app that I have. It's called the G Code from Apex. And every day you have to put your wins. Every day you have to put your how many times, what you're grateful for, and what you've worked on, who you're working on, what the lesson was today, and it helps you mentally evolve every single day, that you're looking for that good stuff in life, because life is tough and your mind sucks. Your mind wants to tell you that it's hard and don't do it because it's trying to protect you, unfortunately, and that's what your mind is geared to do. So you have to trick your mind every day to say, no, I'm okay with working this hard. I'm okay for it to being a little screwed up, and it's not as easy as it should be, because here I had this win, I did this, I'm grateful for these things, I focused on that, and this is why, this is my lesson today, is that I did all this and this is what I got out of it, and you got to do it, man. You really have to do it. So
yeah, and I think that was good closing. That was great closing thoughts. And I think to summarize, it really is about mindset, right? I mean,
sure.
I said this earlier in the conversation. The next 6 months are going to pass no matter what, and you can either be proactive or reactive, and I can guarantee you're going to be much more successful in the proactive side, right? So
yes, sir.
That brings us to the end, my friends. And
it does, man. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.